All right, so for this last one, I got a story that honestly shouldn't be that surprising to anybody who watches Kyle's channel or my channel, or really anybody who gives a somewhat honest analysis of the bipartisan nature of US foreign policy. But here from The Intercept's Stephen Semler, he's got a new report out basically detailing exactly how this process plays out. He says Biden is selling weapons to the majority of the world's autocracies. Okay, so again, shouldn't be that much of a surprise here, but let's just go ahead and get into some of the details and see what he's talking about. He says, since President Joe Biden came into office in 2021, he has described a battle between democracies and autocracies in which the US and other democracies strive to create a peaceful world, right? That's what we've been doing over the course of modern American history. We've just been spreading democracy and peace around the world. I mean, those are our intentions. It's certainly not resource extraction. It's certainly not political and economic dominance around the world in order to maintain our place as the hegemonic powerhouse of the globe. It's nothing like that. We're just innocent little actors trying to spread democracy and peace, okay? It's not more complicated than that. Don't think about it too much, right? I mean, it's just absolutely amazing, right? Especially given the fact that I don't even think you could really make an honest argument that even the United States is a genuine democracy. And I don't mean in the sense of like, you know, having an outright like majority rule where the American people get to directly vote on things, which is something I would like to see much more with ballot measures and stuff like that. That's not the kind of democracy I'm talking about. I'm talking about democracy just in the terms of how the United States defines democracy, right? I mean, we have an entirely corrupted political system. I mean, keep in mind, there were stories like this that were just breaking a couple of years ago where they say that at least 15 lawmakers who shape U.S. defense policy have investments in military contractors. Okay, so the people who are sitting on the Senate Armed Services Committee who get to decide what the scope of the Pentagon budget is going to be, they have drastic influence in terms of who's getting contracts and when they're getting contracts and all of that stuff. They have direct investments in these companies. And not only that, but they're also getting funded by these private for-profit military weapons manufacturers, okay? That's how our government works. It's not just with the military industry and the military industrial complex. It goes across the board, obviously, right? With healthcare, with fossil fuels, and all of these different industries. Our government is rotten and corrupt to its core, okay? We all understand that. You couldn't possibly define this as a actual democracy or even like a republic with a representative republic with a democracy, right? I mean, it's just completely delusional that anyone would genuinely believe that, especially given that we're getting new data like this, right? He continues. The reality, however, is that the Biden administration has helped increase the military power of a large number of authoritarian countries. According to an Intercept review of recently released government data, the U.S. sold weapons to at least 57% of the world's autocratic countries in 2022. They say since the end of the Cold War, the United States has been the world's biggest weapons dealer, accounting for about 40%, okay, of all arms exports in a given year. 40% of arms exports. I mean, this is who we are, right? We're basically just a giant global arms dealer to anybody who will, you know, side with us when it comes to geopolitical affairs or economic domination. I mean, that's what this is about, right? 40% of global arms sales in any given year. They say in general, these exports are funded through grants or sales. There are two pathways for the latter category: foreign military sales and direct commercial sales. So they say the U.S. government acts as an intermediary for FMS acquisitions. It buys the material from a company first and then delivers the goods to the foreign recipient. DCS acquisitions are more straightforward. They're the result of an agreement between a U.S. company and a foreign government. Both categories of sales require the government's approval. And I mean, keep in mind, one of the first things that I covered when Joe Biden came into office, right, after running on the campaign trail in 2020 saying, I'm going to treat Saudi Arabia as the pariah state that they are, and we're going to cut off weapon sales. We're not going to continue in aiding and abetting this genocide that's going on in Yemen. One of the first things that he did in terms of weapon sales when he got into office was give a massive contract to Raytheon to sell weapons to Saudi Arabia. Keep in mind, his Pentagon chief, Lloyd Austin, just came from sitting on the board of Raytheon and got $1 million payout after coming from Raytheon to lead the Pentagon. Okay, do you think there may be some sort of a conflict of interest there? I mean, I guess, you know, it's completely innocent, right? But they say of the 84 countries codified as autocracies under the regimes of world system in 2022, the United States sold weapons to at least 48 of them, which is again 57%. The at least qualifier, they say, is necessary because several factors frustrate the accurate tracking of U.S. weapons sales. Again, reminder, the Pentagon cannot pass a goddamn audit. They have failed 5 audits in a row. We are talking about nearly $1 trillion per year budget for the Pentagon. They can't even tell us where this shit is going. Okay, it's amazing, right? And also, of course, we're in the middle of this heated debt ceiling debate, this debt ceiling battle and standoff that's going on right now, where Republicans are trying to push cuts to the federal government budget. Are they pushing cuts to the financial black hole of the Pentagon? No, they're trying to push more work requirements for Medicaid and food stamps. Okay, that's the situation that Republicans are dealing with. And I mean, keep in mind as well, these are the same Republicans, at least a fraction of them, who just a couple months ago were saying that the military has gone woke and we need to slash the Pentagon budget in order to get that under control. Where's that talk now? I mean, listen, you can use whatever justification you want. If you think the military's woke, fine. I don't care. Let's cut the Pentagon budget. You want to agree on that? Then let's get it done. I don't care what your justification for it actually is. But then suddenly that was taken off the table and they go right back to trying to serve the interests of corporate America, right? It's amazing. But they say, the State Department's report of commercial arms sales during the fiscal year makes prodigious use of various in its recipient category, and as a result, the specific recipients for nearly $11 billion in weapons sales are not disclosed. And they have this graphic here, if you're on the podcast and can't see it, basically just, again, indicates the countries that the United States is selling weapons to versus not selling weapons to out of the autocratic ones that they have listed as a part of this report. Again, it's 48 autocracies that we sold weapons to, 36 that we didn't sell weapons to. We're just spreading democracy. Don't worry about it, right? They continue. They say these findings contradict Biden's preferred framing of international politics as fundamentally a struggle in which the world's democracies led by the United States are on the side of peace and security, as he called it in last year's State of the Union address. Opposing the United States and its democratic allies are the autocracies, the big baddies, that collude to undermine the international system, Biden has stated. In a speech in Warsaw last year, he said the battle between democracy and autocracy is one between liberty and repression, and between a rules-based international order and one governed by brute force, okay? So this is a competition between rules-based international order versus governments that are ruled by brute force, okay? The same government that continues to give billions and billions of dollars on an annual basis to Israel, for example, okay? A country that is continuing to commit an ethnic cleansing of the Palestinian people, a country that continues to bomb Gaza, the world's largest open-air prison, into oblivion. They're literally bombing Gaza right now as I am recording this video, okay? We continue to give support for them, and somehow that's not categorized as them using brute force as they're continuing the illegal occupation of Palestinian lands, the illegal under international law, right? This so-called rules-based international order, the internationally recognized illegal expansion of settlements into the West Bank. I mean, these are some of our closest allies in the Middle East. Saudi Arabia as well. Do they not count as violating these international norms or, not, I guess, being operating by brute force? I mean, a country that executes people in the public square for, completely ridiculous charges, that jails people for bad posts on Twitter and shit like that. I mean, these are our closest allies. And then they turn around and they have the audacity to say, no, these are our close allies. These people get a pass. But then other countries like Iran, which, is not a country that I agree with on their policies, right, or anything like that. But, we turn around and we act as if they're like the demons, and then our allies that are just as vicious, if not more vicious in a multitude of different ways, they're the good guys. I mean, it's just this black and white, ridiculous view that absolutely nobody should buy into. But they say the White House's 2022 national security strategy adds, quote, "The most pressing strategic challenge facing our vision is from powers that layer authoritarian governance with a revisionist foreign policy." Okay, would that authoritarian governance again include the apartheid government of Israel? Does that not count as authoritarian governance? I mean, I guess not, if you don't consider the Palestinian people to be people, right? I mean, it's like saying that, back in the era of Jim Crow in the United States, oh no, we had a democracy, just black people don't really count, right, as a part part of that process. I mean, it's the same exact analogy that you could come up with for Israel in this circumstance. But they finish off here. They say, despite that rhetoric, a review of the new data suggests that instead of a business as usual approach to weapon sales, or it suggests a business as usual approach to weapon sales, former President Donald Trump based his arms sale policy primarily on economic considerations. So at least he was kind of like more open about it, right? They say corporate interests above everything else. I mean, do you guys remember when Donald Trump basically just came and said the quiet part out loud and admitted that the reason he wanted to keep troops in Syria was so we could continue stealing their oil? I mean, that's one thing that you kind of appreciate about Donald Trump is he has absolutely no filter whatsoever. He doesn't really know how to play that inside game and sort of cover it up and use rhetoric that is misleading to people to get them to not understand the true reality. So I kind of appreciate that a little bit from Donald Trump at least. But they finish off here. They say in his first foreign trip as president, he traveled to Saudi Arabia and announced a major arms deal with the repressive kingdom. Trump's business-first approach resulted in a dramatic upturn in weapons sales during his administration. But as I point out here, in Biden's first full fiscal year as president, weapons sales from the United States to other countries reached $206 billion, according to the State Department, which uses an opaque but seemingly broader accounting of yearly FMS and DCS figures. So, I mean, if you look at the graph here, I mean, it shows that in 2022, under the Biden administration, they've conducted more weapon sales, a higher amount of weapon sales than even the Trump administration. Okay, I mean, this is what we're dealing with here. Again, it's really just a reminder at the end of the day. The main point that I want to get across to people is the bipartisan nature of American empire. Okay, this is how it works. It doesn't matter if you elect a Democrat. It doesn't matter if you elect a Republican. This machine, the military industrial complex, these weapons contractors, the corruption that they throw into the U.S. political system, that is going to continue regardless of whether it's a Democrat in power or a Republican in power. Okay, so that's the reality of what we're looking like right now. Anytime that you hear a U.S. politician who's coming out and still pretending as if the United States is just simply here to spread democracy and peace around the world, maybe ask some questions about, Saudi Arabia or Israel or many other countries around the world that we are continuing to arm as they conduct ethnic cleansing and maintain apartheids and genocides in different circumstances. I mean, it's just such a completely ridiculous idea that the United States stands for some sort of international rules and order. No, we have our friends and we have our enemies. How we determine that is largely based on whether or not they are willing to be subservient to our geopolitical and global economic priorities, basically, okay? Our geopolitical and global economic priorities. That is as simple as it is, right? It's not this sort of like black and white situation where you have good guys who just so happen to be allies of the US, and then you have bad guys who are not subservient to the United States. It's not that simple. There's a lot more gray area here, so it's just a good reminder of that. Okay, so with that being said, that's the show. That's what I got for you guys today. Appreciate you guys listening to me while Kyle is gone. He's going to be back in just a couple of days, but with that being said, if you guys want to, go subscribe to my channel, the links will always be in the descriptions of some of these videos. Continue to subscribe to Kyle Kulinski's channel. He's headed for 10 million subscribers, 1,000 million subscribers, 1 billion subscribers, so we're going to get him to that. And yeah, with that being said, I'm out.
Hey y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop, and watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.